June 2nd. The team must carry that player on their books at their current salary cap number until the 2nd of June. All right, now here it says the first one will be offensive lineman Jack Conklin. Jack Conklin is going to be released, and I mean,
the Cleveland Browns are about to gut their offensive line. And when I say gut, I mean systematic demolition. Andrew Berry isn't tweaking around the edges here. He's preparing to release multiple starters, and the names getting leaked tell you everything about how catastrophic last season really was. David Njoku already announced he's not coming back. Now we've got 2 more offensive linemen who are about to get their walking papers. And the way this is playing out reveals something critical about how NFL front offices operate when they're trying to rebuild credibility after a disaster.
He's an offensive tackle. I'm down to getting all these dudes up out of here that was on this offensive line. Here it says, while Conklin is a free agent after the 2026 season, they have a dummy year in his contract to allow them to split his dead cap over 2 seasons. Over the cap is incredibly insightful with how they lay out contracts, where they show the dead cap split between 2026 and 2027. It isn't an error on how they have inputted the data, but them sharing that a dummy year is added to the deal to set up a post-June 1st cut in 2026.
Jack Conklin, former Pro Bowler, the guy they brought in to anchor that right tackle position. He's done. And here's what makes this fascinating from a contract structure perspective. The Browns set this up months ago with something called a dummy year. Most fans have never heard of this, but it's how smart front offices create flexibility. They add a fake contract year that exists purely for accounting purposes. It lets them split the dead cap hit across 2 seasons instead of taking it all at once. Over the Cap caught this detail in their database. They're showing Conklin's dead money spreading into 2027, which means Berry planned this exit strategy before last season even ended.
David Njoku, he already announced that he won't be returning, so you can see they are on point and on track. David Njoku already put that out. Boom, here we go. Wyatt Teller. Wyatt Teller is not going to be back on this team. And that's just what it is. Here it says, between the 3 starting quality guards on the roster, which one of the season, it felt like Teller was probably most likely to return. Week 1 of the season, it felt like Teller was most likely to return for 2026. Instead, his performances were below his investment level.
But Conklin isn't the biggest name on the chopping block. Wyatt Teller. That's the one that's going to sting. This is a guy who made second-team All-Pro in 2020 and 2021. Elite guard play. The kind of player you build an offensive line around. Except his performance fell off a cliff last season, and it got so bad that Kevin Stefanski benched him. Now here's where it gets messy. Stefanski tried to sell the media on an injury excuse. Said Teller was hurt, couldn't play. But Teller himself came out and contradicted his own head coach. Said he was healthy. Said he was ready to play. That's a player publicly calling his coach a liar. When that happens, when the relationship breaks down that badly, somebody's leaving. And it's not going to be the coach who just got fired anyway.
This in turn led to his benching for the team to see what they had in Tevin Jenkins. And we know Kevin Stefanski was lying, saying Wyatt Teller was injured. Wyatt Teller was saying he wasn't injured and he was healthy to play. And it looks like Wyatt Teller is going to be released. Here it says, between the 3 players, the key numbers to look at is how much is deferred into 2027 by doing a post-June 1st cut. Okay, based on this, you would assume all 3 players are leaving. Then Conklin is the one you do a normal cut on, so you free up as much cap space as possible. It is smart for the team.
So let's talk about what this actually means for Cleveland's salary cap. Post-June 1st cuts are a specific mechanism in the NFL's collective bargaining agreement. Every team gets to designate 2 players per year for this treatment. You notify them in March that they're cut, but they don't officially come off the books until June 2nd. The player can sign with another team immediately, but the original team has to carry their full cap hit through June. Then the dead money splits across 2 years instead of hitting all at once. For a team like Cleveland that's already in cap hell because of the Deshaun Watson contract, this is the only way to create breathing room without completely destroying their 2026 flexibility.
Contracts is possible with dummy years and post-June 1st cuts, then you have as much flexibility and choice on what you want to do. So it looks like Jack Conklin and Wyatt Teller are going to be some of the first offensive linemen just purely released from this roster. I I want to take a look at ESPN Cleveland as they addressed the new quarterback battle. Okay, there seems to be a huge quarterback battle going.
Now watch how the media coverage of this is already shifting to the quarterback situation. Because that's what everyone actually cares about. Nobody's writing think pieces about offensive line restructuring. They want to know about Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders. And the way ESPN Cleveland is framing this tells you how the local media sees it playing out. They're not even pretending it's a real competition. Tony Grossi, who's covered this team for decades, is basically saying the job is Sanders to lose. But they have to let it play out through OTAs and training camp because of the optics. You can't just hand a rookie the job in February, when you're still paying Watson $46 million guaranteed.
Grossi, it is Thursday, February 12th. Let me repeat, Tony, it is only February 12th, and everybody is already debating ad nauseum the Browns' quarterback position before the combine, before the draft, before free agency, before a snap is even taken for next season, and the arguments are already full-blown. Where are you at with it?
And before they've even added a quarterback. These are just the guys who are on their roster right now. So it is going to be a long haul to the season opener in 2026 with this quarterback issue.
Well, Tony, and obviously...
Listen to how carefully they're dancing around this. Grossi says the plan won't be clear until we see who takes the first snap in OTAs. But OTAs don't start until late May. That's 3.5 months from now. And he's already hedging by saying the plan will probably change 4 times between now and then, just like it did last year. That's not analysis. That's a veteran reporter telling you he doesn't trust this front office to stick with any decision they make. When your local beat writers are that skeptical of your process, you've got a credibility problem that goes way beyond wins and losses.
Everybody, you've seen a lot of quarterback battles through your time covering the Browns. Are you really looking at, like, okay, this is kind of how they're thinking about it?
Until we see the first practice of OTAs,
okay,
and see who takes the first snap, that's to me when it kicks off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't see that. Usually they let the media in on the second day of OTAs, maybe the third, because they only have to do it once a week during OTAs.
Here's what actually happened behind the scenes. Todd Monken interviewed for the offensive coordinator job, and one of the specific questions they asked him was how he would develop Shedeur Sanders. Not would you be comfortable with Sanders? Not what do you think of Sanders as a prospect? How would you develop him? That's a question with a built-in assumption. They'd already decided Sanders was the target before they hired Monken. The interview was about whether Monken's philosophy aligned with developing a rookie quarterback, not whether they should draft one. And Monken's been on the job for 2 weeks now, rewatching every snap of every quarterback on the roster. He's doing his due diligence. But the decision about Sanders was made before he walked in the building.
A plan written down somewhere about how they want to at least go about this.
Sure, I think the plan was articulated by Monken in the job interview. He, I'm sure he studied the Browns roster as much as he could prior to his interview. We know one of the questions was, how do you plan to develop Shedeur Sanders? And we can assume that the entire quarterback room was discussed in the job interview. Mm-hmm. And he's been on the job for 2 weeks now. And I think he's reviewing, at this point, every...
Now here's where the power dynamics get interesting. When Kevin Stefanski was the head coach, there was constant tension about who controlled the quarterback room. Did Stefanski have final say? Did Andrew Berry? What about the offensive coordinator? Last year they tried to include Stefanski more in the draft process, sent him to pro days, the Senior Bowl, the Combine. That was Berry trying to get buy-in, trying to make sure Stefanski felt ownership over whatever quarterback they drafted. Because if the pick failed, Berry wanted Stefanski to share the blame. That's how front offices protect themselves, spread the accountability around so nobody can point fingers when it goes wrong. But Stefanski's gone now, fired after going 3-14. So the dynamic between Berry and Monken is completely different. Monken doesn't have head coach authority. He's not making personnel decisions. His job is to take whatever quarterback Berry gives him and make it work. That's actually cleaner in some ways. There's no ambiguity about who's responsible for what. Berry picks the players. Monken coaches them. If it fails, we know exactly whose decision it was. And that might be why Barry was willing to make this hire. He's betting his entire career on these next 2 draft classes. If Sanders busts, Barry's getting fired anyway. Might as well have clear lines of authority, so there's no confusion about who made the call.
Frame of every snap of every quarterback on the roster to get a better idea of what he has. He probably has, a general idea. So yeah, I think they have a plan right now to enter the off-season program and OTAs. That plan will change when they acquire a quarterback, either through trade, free agency, or the draft.
So Tony, you're mentioning Todd Monken is doing this. A big conversation when Kevin Stefanski was here was how much say does Stefanski have in the quarterback room and who plays and all this, and how much say does Andrew Barry have and all that. What do you think?
So let's game out what happens next. The combine is in 2 weeks. That's where Barry and Monken will sit down with Sanders for a formal interview. They'll put him on the whiteboard, test his football IQ, see how he processes information under pressure. Then there's Sanders' pro day at Colorado, probably in late March. Barry will be there. Monken will be there. They'll watch him throw every route in the tree, check his mechanics, talk to his coaches. By early April, they'll know if he's their guy. And if he is, they're taking him at pick 2. No trade back. No cute maneuvering. Just take him and deal with the Watson situation however they have to deal with it. But here's what nobody's talking about. What if Sanders doesn't want to go to Cleveland? His father Dion has been very vocal about steering his son toward the right situation. And Cleveland is objectively a terrible situation. Worst record in football. Dysfunction at every level. A quarterback controversy waiting to happen. An offensive line that's being dismantled. Why would Sanders want any part of that? The Browns can draft him anyway. They have that power. But if Sanders and his camp make it clear they don't want to be there, that creates a toxic dynamic before he ever takes a snap. This is the same situation the Chargers faced with Eli Manning in 2004. Manning refused to play for them, forced a draft day trade to the Giants. It can happen. And if you're Sanders, you've got leverage. You can tell teams you won't sign. You can sit out. You can make it so uncomfortable that they have no choice but to trade you. Now, I don't think Sanders will go that far, but the threat exists, and Barry has to factor that into his decision-making. Here's the other complication. Dillon Gabriel is still in this draft class. Gabriel just won the Heisman Trophy. He's got more college experience than Sanders. Some scouts like his tape better. If the Browns are sitting at pick 2 and they're not sure about Sanders, Gabriel becomes the safe play. Take Gabriel, let him compete with Watson, see what happens. It's less dramatic, less risky, but also less upside. Gabriel's ceiling is probably a high-end game manager. Sanders' ceiling is a franchise quarterback. So what do you value more, safety or upside? And that's the fundamental question facing every NFL team that needs a quarterback. Do you swing big and risk missing completely? Or do you play it safe and accept that you're probably not getting a superstar? Barry's track record suggests he plays it safe. His biggest draft picks have been conservative choices. Myles Garrett at 1 overall was the obvious pick. Denzel Ward at 4 was consensus. Jedrick Wills at 10 was a reach, but a safe reach. Barry hasn't taken many big swings. Which makes me wonder if he's actually got the stomach to draft Sanders and deal with all the chaos that comes with it. Because make no mistake, drafting Sanders means chaos. It means Watson on the bench making $46 million. It means media circus every single day. It means fan division. It means pressure on a rookie that most rookies can't handle. And if Sanders struggles early, which most rookies do, the calls to put Watson back in will be deafening. Can Barry handle that? Can Monken? Can the organization? I'm not sure they can. And that's not a knock on Sanders. That's a reality check about Cleveland's dysfunction. This franchise has had 32 starting quarterbacks since 1999. 32. They've destroyed careers. They've ruined prospects. They've created a graveyard of failed quarterbacks that stretches back 25 years. Why would Sanders be any different? What has changed structurally that makes us think Cleveland can suddenly develop a franchise quarterback? The offensive line is being gutted. The coaching staff is brand new. The front office is on the hot seat. The fan base is toxic. The media coverage is relentlessly negative. These are not conditions where young quarterbacks thrive. These are conditions where young quarterbacks get broken. And if I'm Sanders, I'm looking at all of that and saying no thank you. I'll take my chances in free agency next year. I'll go somewhere that actually knows how to build around a quarterback. But Barry doesn't care what Sanders wants. He cares about saving his job. And drafting Sanders at 2 overall is the move that buys him time. Even if Sanders struggles, Berry can say he took a shot. He can say he tried to fix the quarterback position. He can deflect blame onto coaching, onto the offensive line, onto Watson's contract. That's how NFL executives survive. They make moves that look defensible even if they don't work. And drafting Sanders is defensible. Nobody can kill you for taking the consensus top quarterback prospect. So here's my prediction. Cleveland takes Sanders at 2. Watson gets cut or traded before training camp, eating a massive dead cap hit. Sanders starts week 1. The offensive line is a disaster because they just released 3 starters. Sanders takes a beating, probably gets hurt, and the season spirals into another top 5 pick. Berry gets fired in January 2027. Monken gets fired with him, and Sanders requests a trade, just like Baker Mayfield did. That's the cycle. That's what Cleveland does, and nothing I've seen suggests this time will be any different. The offensive line moves we're seeing right now are just the beginning. Conklin gone, Teller gone, Njoku gone. Who's next? Probably Jedrick Wills, the left tackle Berry drafted in 2020, who's been a massive disappointment. Probably Joel Bitonio, the veteran guard who's aging out. By the time they're done, they might have 1 or 2 starters left from last year's line. Everything else will be free agents, draft picks and prayers. That's not how you protect a rookie quarterback. That's how you get a rookie quarterback killed. And that brings me back to the fundamental question. Is Andrew Berry actually trying to win? Or is he just trying to survive? Because these moves feel like survival. Cut salary, create cap space, draft the shiny new toy. Hope it works long enough to keep your job another year. That's not a plan. That's desperation. And desperation is what got Cleveland into this mess in the first place. So what should they do instead? If I'm running the Browns, I'm trading that pick 2 overall. I'm getting a haul of picks and players. I'm rebuilding the offensive line first. I'm creating a foundation that can actually support a quarterback. And then maybe in 2027 or 2028, when you've got the infrastructure in place, you draft your guy. But that requires patience. That requires job security. And Berry doesn't have either. So he's going to do what every desperate GM does. He's going to draft a quarterback, hope for a miracle, and blame everyone else when it doesn't work. That's the Cleveland Browns. That's been the Cleveland Browns for 25 years. And until ownership changes the culture from the top down, it's going to keep being the Cleveland Browns. No matter who they draft, no matter who they hire, the dysfunction is structural. And you can't fix structural problems with personnel moves. So when you see Jack Conklin get released, when you see Wyatt Teller get cut, when you see Shedeur Sanders' name called at pick 2 overall, remember what you're actually watching. You're watching a front office in survival mode. You're watching a franchise that's given up on building the right way. You're watching the same cycle repeat itself for the 32nd time. And if you're a Browns fan, I'm sorry. Because this isn't going to end the way you hope it does. It never does.